morning, everyone. We wanted to extend a warm welcome to everybody here to see our presentation. Today we'll be going over our Pentest engagement from a couple months ago and this one as well. So starting off with introductions, my name is Lizzie Christensen. I'm one of the team leads along with Dawn, who's also team lead. We have our team members, Samantha, Ferdinand, Evelyn, and Marina, and we'll be getting to the scope with Evelyn.
Alright, so the scope for this assessment, we worked on the user, corporate, guest, and train networks. We also tested the Amazon Web Services environment, and in total we were able to discover 17 hosts.
A few months ago, in October, we were able to conduct our first engagement, and we were able to find 22 vulnerabilities. And in our second engagement this week, we were able to discover that there were 9 remediations, which implies that there was 40.9% improvement. So we thank you for making our work harder this week.
So we really wanted to cover some key strengths and improvements that we saw with the client between the last pen test and this one. So starting off with an improvement is that we found that the exposed tram controls were removed. This means that there was an effective remediation from our last pen test to this one. So we also wanted to cover a key strength we saw. We were tasked with speaking with the IT help desk and trying to get information from them that they shouldn't be giving us. So we tried to ask them to set a new account for us, amongst other things, and they either deflected or redirected our questions. They made their processes very clear that we need to have a manager speak with them through an email, and overall, we think that they did a pretty spectacular job based off of the recent social engineering training they got.
All right, and zooming out to the organization as a whole, we'd like to highlight what made our jobs much more difficult was the network segmentation that your teams worked on, I'm sure, tirelessly to implement. Now, to visualize what this is for you all, it is, imagine putting your different services into separate boxes. It makes it more difficult for an attacker to visualize and access or interact with those services to do malicious things. So we thank you for that.
So on the screen right now is a breakdown of all of our findings. In total, we were able to find 23 vulnerabilities, and when compared to our previous assessment, 10 of those vulnerabilities were brand new.
And moving on to our key findings, during the web application assessment of our penetration test, we found issues in the baggage check-in service related to PII, personal identifiable information exposure. And to remediate this, we recommend taking inventory of the web applications and the endpoints and mitigating these specific issues. Additionally, with our network portion of the assessment, we found some security patches that were missing on systems like the domain controller, which is a mission-critical system. And to remediate this, we recommend that patch management procedures are verified and reviewed.
And lastly, zooming out to the organization as a whole again, one of the things we noticed that was a common trend amongst is the inclusion of weak credentials that could be easily guessable by an attacker. During our previous assessment back in October of 2023, we were able to access the administrator account for the employee's time entry application, and very few attempts at guessing the password from a common password list. What we recommend for this is to implement a strong password policy across all applications within your environment, and eventually, when time permitting, roll into new passwords that are stronger. So passing it over, I would like to give it to Samantha, our governance risk and compliance expert.
There are a few different compliance regulations that RACMs should be concerned with. As a airport located within the United States, you must adhere to security directives published by the Transportation Security Administration, TSA, which recently in March 2023, they sent out an update with additional directives that need to be followed. During our assessment this weekend, we found 2 non-compliance findings. One of them was one of our key findings of an unpatched domain controller. The operating system did not have the latest security patches, which goes against the directive that critical systems need to have the updated patches installed. And then the other non-compliance finding was on the tram location controls. A user on the train network could add an additional tram to the system without authorization, which goes against the directive of access controls needing to be implemented. For the TSA security directives, there is a wide range of fines. On the high end, it is up to $37,377 per security violation. And for the two findings that we found, they do range towards that maximum end. And then in addition, another regulation is the General Data Protection Regulation by the European Union. It is applicable to RACMs because they are an international airport, so they offer a service to EU citizens and residents. So they need to follow those data privacy regulations. We did find one non-compliance finding, which was also mentioned in our key findings, which was the personally identifiable information on the baggage check-in system. It included information such as full names, social security numbers, date of birth, things that could be used to maliciously harm passengers such as through identity theft, and could lead to reputational damages. And for GDPR penalties, they can range up to 20 million euros or 4% of the organization's prior financial year's revenue. And GDPR does not provide any specific technology recommendations to adhere to the privacy. So our team recommends following industry best practices, such as the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, airport recommendations, and other recommendations.
A question, actually, good slide. Well, thank you very much. So on the three non-compliance findings you noted, the two around the TSA regs, if it's like $37,000, I mean $70,000, not really for us, you know. So is that, should I even care about those?
Yes, because not only could it do fines, but then it could impact other like reputational things, so, and safety risks. So if another tram can be added to the system randomly, it could impact the safety and operation of the other trams, which could be a physical impact of that. And then for the domain controller, that controls a large portion of the corporate network, so there could lead to downtime and other exposures that would inhibit business operations.
Okay, thank you. So were all the findings that you found then critical for us?
Typically, we find a few critical vulnerabilities in the environment, and it was similar in here. We have only about 2 critical vulnerabilities, but a lot of them are also medium. There's also some highs. It all depends on how easily exploitable these things are, and given that it is an internal environment, these criticals are relative. So, for example, critical in an external environment where publicly facing systems would be more critical than critical in internal environments. So that's how we rate these vulnerabilities and severities.
Okay, and what model do you use to base whether it's critical or?
We have a risk and likelihood matrix, and so we base it off of that. So if it's probable, easily exploitable, it's probably going to be a high risk, and obviously the impact would matter on that too. So if it's a high impact, higher risk.
Okay, thank you.
Were there any safety issues, and following up from what you just said, how did you make the recommendations? Was it based on the risks matrix?
Yes, it was mainly based on the risk matrix for safety issues. I think we had considered the tram as one of the critical things, and also user data, personal sensitive information. That's also a risk that we took as well, or rather considered as well. So we have based on those findings and the risk and likelihood. That's how we rate the severities of these findings.
Was that how you approached the recommendations based on critical and high as well? That's